Hello and welcome to Boliv Thinks About. Today I'm not wearing my Boliv Thinks About hat. I will be wearing my StarTeenMum hat. I'm Pauline Morris, if you don't know who I am, and I started the group StarTeenMums to help mums who are young and who are teenage mums, you know, to get some support and inspiration, motivation, that sort of thing. I was a teen mom myself. I had my daughter when I was 17, and to say that was an interesting experience would be a little bit of a, it wouldn't quite describe it. But I found it was a very difficult time in my life, and I was judged and I was sort of dismissed, you know, right off the bat. But I was very lucky. I was very blessed. I had a wonderful grandmother and a mother who supported me through many of my ventures. And I've gone on to travel the world, become a doctor, get married, and do lots of things like this podcast with you. And it's not just about me. I've got the lovely Elizabeth Bradshaw with me today. I'm not going to steal her thunder because she's done some really amazing things. So I will hand it over to her to say hi to you guys and tell you a little bit about herself. So there you go, Liz, over to you.
Thank you, Pauline. Yes, hello to everybody. It's very nice to be asked to do this podcast, this sharing my own experiences, and just to be able to help support other young mums who are possibly feeling that life is rather challenging for them at this point in time. So thank you very much for inviting me. So who am I? What am I about? Okay, I fell pregnant at 17. I had my son when I was 18. And in all honesty, I didn't really think that one through in terms of how that would have a wider impact on the people around me, on my family, and my own friendships and what that meant for me. If I'm honest, I didn't not want to have a baby at that time. Life was a little bit difficult at home. My boyfriend at the time seemed to be offering me something else, something for me, something for us, and I suppose life was a bit overwhelming for me, and I found that the thought of having a baby was not really unappealing. I wouldn't say I went all out and took risks and just thought, well, that's it, I'm having a baby, that's going to be my path. If I'm really honest, I think although I considered myself quite intelligent and you know, quite a clever girl, I think I sort of fell into that bracket of just, it will never happen, you know, it will never happen to me in terms of using contraception sometimes, not using it at other times. I didn't really think through the consequences of that though, to be honest. So having to then tell my parents, having to then tell my mum was a huge deal. And to, you know, thankfully she didn't take it initially. She was okay. I mean, it wasn't the worst reaction I could have had from my mum or from my dad. They were naturally very disappointed. You know, I was set to go to university. I had been given a place at university. Teachers at the school, senior teachers at the school, still encouraged me to go to university and said things like, well, actually, you can go, there are childcare facilities, you can, you know, you can still do this. At that time, that wasn't going to be an option for me. That was all just way too much. So I didn't go to university. I stayed put. To be honest, I wasn't even in the relationship with the guy that I had been seeing, you know, for a couple of years on and off. It was a very sort of naive, immature relationship, is how I would now describe it. I didn't describe it as that then. That's how I now, looking back, that's how I now describe it. So then I was, you know, I was single. My parents were supportive in as much as they helped me with a deposit for a flat to rent. I had no income. I was relying on benefits. My grandparents were extremely disappointed. In fact, my grandfather didn't speak to me for 6 months. From the time that he found out, he just ignored me, and we would from time to time be at, you know, family events, and he just did not speak to me at all. And my grandmother, she did speak to me, but I think naturally her feelings lay with her own daughter, my mum, and how that had affected my parents. And so that, yeah, that was tough. I felt very, very alone. I felt very like, okay, I'm doing this regardless. I was almost bloody minded about it, you know. It's just, I just had to get on with it. And that was that, you know, whatever other people's feelings were about it, it wasn't going to change the outcome. There was a baby on the way, and that was that. And I just had to suck it up and get on with it, regardless of what my family said, how they felt, how they treated me. That was not my priority. Trying to smooth things over with my family was not my priority. It was just became about kind of each day, getting through each day, and, you know, and that was a good day if, you know, we got to the end of that day and that was fine, and then the next day was the next day, and that was it really. So yeah, my son came along. I just adored him from the moment he was born. I still adore him now. Which is good news for him. But, you know, that sort of, I suppose, that unconditional sense of, you know, overwhelming love that you have. I was very lucky that, you know, that I had that he was born, and it all felt right for me at that time. And then my grandfather, he was the first to in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 days, because that's what you did in England at the time for your first baby, 5 days. My grandfather came to visit, and he was the first one to change his nappy and hold him and make a fuss of him. And yeah, so we kind of, you know, shrugged it off. All was forgiven, I guess. And that moment. Yeah, but it was tough in terms of being single, in terms of sort of having contact with my son's dad and trying to sort of hold on to a relationship that was really not healthy, not going to work. So it was a very emotional roller coaster, really, I have to say.
Yeah. I personally identify with a lot of the things you said, because I went through that same sort of thing with my family, where my mum and dad were incredibly disappointed, and eventually, I mean, it and you're right, it was a very emotional time, and my father didn't take it very well at all, and he stopped speaking to me. So I identified with that bit about the disappointment and having to deal with a relationship with someone who says they love you, or used to say they love you, finding it so easy to just about walk away from you, really. But your granddad came back. My dad never really did. I mean, after my daughter was born, as you said, she was absolutely perfect, absolutely gorgeous. And I tried, but he never really took to her. And yeah, I had that alone feeling as well. And there's something you said that was really interesting. You know, smoothing things over with my family was not a priority for me. Now, for me, I really struggled with that because I spent most of my life trying to please my mom, my dad, my family, my teachers. So this period was very difficult for me. And the other thing I identified with that you said that would really struck a chord with me is like, I just had to get through one day at a time. And I say to people that, you know, there was a time in my life where you couldn't ask me what was going to happen in the afternoon. You know, you couldn't, you know, it was sort of get up, get something to drink. You know, it was literally a series of steps. There was no future planning because it took that much effort to just get through each day. And then you got through one day and it was like, okay, now I get to do it all again tomorrow. But what I'd like you to tell me about is, how did you manage that process? How did you manage it? What did you tell yourself when you woke up in the morning? How did you cope with that? I feel a bit alone. I know I've disappointed everyone. My granddad's not speaking to me, but there's babies on the way. And I know you said I just have to suck it up, but was that really it? All I did was just suck it up and get on with it.
No, I mean, if I'm honest, I had a lot of tears, and I know, you know, hormonally it's a very emotional time and all of those things are changing in your body anyway, but yeah, there were tears, and yeah, I mean, I would cry myself to sleep some nights. You know, I would feel sorry for myself. Absolutely, I did.
Yeah.
But I think I was, because I was, I suppose, occupied also with setting up my own space. I very much wanted my own space. I didn't want my mum to interfere. And I felt if I stayed at home, as accommodating as they were trying to be, the dynamics were not somewhere I wanted to be. And so I suppose organising my own space in terms of sourcing furniture and you know, buying some material for some curtains, and then my other nan very kindly made the curtains for the nursery. And so I think I was occupied, and I think I occupied myself with things. But underneath it all was that sense of having let people down. What did the future hold? Was this just going to be my life now? That real sense of feeling sorry for myself and thinking, well, that's it now. No, there is no future for me almost. You know, nobody's going to want to be with a single mum, you know, and I'm really young, and universities, sort of the opportunities have sort of been and gone. And I think I felt all of those things. But of course, it wasn't the case. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get that as well. So what's interesting is I can, like I said just now, I can totally identify with every single thing you just said. And probably our young ladies who are going to be listening to this will be feeling very much the same way. But the thing that we can put forward to them now is, despite feeling those things, as you said, we got out of it. That wasn't our lives. We did have a future, and we've both got lovely futures now with lovely families. So let's talk a little bit about what your next steps were. I mean, like for me, I had a very supporting grandmother who took it all in very practical stride, and she encouraged me to go to university, and my mum supported me. And what I found was I got some support from places I didn't expect to get support from. I had friends, a pair that were not friends before. I did lose friends as well, but you know, I had this, all of a sudden there was this support that came, and I managed to get to university, and I managed to study and get a degree, and you know, and life just slowly got better and better and better. So what marshaled that for you? What was your driving force, and you know, what kept you going so that you are where you are now?
I would very much say friends, and just as you've identified, I gained friends, people that I hadn't expected to be friends with. So let's just call him my ex-boyfriend. My ex-boyfriend's friends, our sort of friendship group. I wouldn't say they sided with me, but I had always felt that they were his friends, and actually then I found that they were my friends. And as friendships change, and don't forget, you know, you're 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
You're still in that time where friends come and go, and there's lots of shift, I would say, in who you socialize with and who you align yourself with. So so I did discover that I had friends, and that's where the acceptance was for me, I suppose, or their acceptance, where I felt I belonged. And actually it was no big deal that there was a little one there to just muck in with it all and tag along, and he was included. And you know, there was that support network. I wouldn't say in terms of babysitting and things, but you know, my sister has always been amazing. She's quite a lot younger than me. She is she's 5.5 years younger than me. But I suppose that, yeah, she sort of stepped up to be the babysitter, and you know, and helped me out in that way. My parents did support me in terms of, you know, I could, you know, I had a place to go to. I always had a place to go to if I needed a place to go to. However awkward I felt about that, it was there. And then I suppose, yeah, just through friendship, what happened next? I had danced. I had always wanted to dance. I had trained to be a professional dancer, and I had an opportunity to go abroad, which was for 3 months initially. And my parents actually offered, well, my dad said, don't worry, we will look after your son. You know, go and do this. This is what you had trained to do. This is what you had wanted to do. My parents were both dancers. My parents were both cabaret artists when I was young. So for me, the notion of traveling around to different countries and having somebody else look after me, you know, like whether that was the housekeeper or being in nursery, or that makes it sound very posh and rich, but that's not the case. It's just the time, the circumstances. So for me, going abroad at the time and leaving him with my parents was just, yeah, okay, that's what happened to me. I lived with my nan for a short period of time. My parents went off for 6 months to work. I went to school in other countries. So for me, the travel thing was just, yep, I'll accept it, I'll go with it, I'll take that opportunity. I really didn't bank on how hard that was for me to actually leave my son. In my head, 3 months of time was, you know, like the equivalent of maybe a week, but no. That was the longest time. I think that was the longest time of my life. And although I was enjoying this really new experience, that was so heart-wrenching, and I couldn't actually speak when I returned to England. I couldn't, completely lost my voice just through emotion, I suppose. But I came back and you know, still had my network of friends, and through those friends I met my husband. He was friends of a friend of a friend, and we just happened to meet one day round a friend's house. And it turned out he was a single parent as well. He had been married, he was divorced, but he was a single dad. Actually, I met him before I went, but when I came back, we met up again, and we just kind of fell into step. We just sort of fell into this relationship that I wasn't really expecting, I wasn't looking for. And yeah, I think for me, people get together for all sorts of reasons, don't they? For me, the fact that he was a single parent made my journey easier, because he understood what that was, you know, the daily parenting of got to get to school, got to be here at this time, got to pick so and so up, there's got to be dinner on the table, there has to be bath time. There's not an option for any of these things, you know. When you're a single parent, there's no option at all. So so I guess we found that support in each other. So his daughter lived with him, my son lived with me, and then we sort of came together and made, you know, sort of two halves.
The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's what we called ourselves, the Brady Bunch, definitely. So yeah, so then I had that support. Obviously that gave me that sense of, I wasn't seeking it at the time, but I guess it gave me that sense of feeling needed, feeling wanted, and some sense of financial security at the time. But I think I'd always wanted, I hadn't ever wanted to be a homemaker, a stay-at-home mum. Life for me was too interesting and there was too much to explore for me personally to settle into that role. But I went back to college and I trained to be a personal fitness trainer, and it seemed like the natural step for me from my dance background. So it was just part-time, you know, a couple of mornings a week for the year, and then I gained my personal training qualifications, and then I found a part-time job working in a gym in I was going to say, well, you don't need to know where, really, do you?
No, we don't need to know where. It's fine.
So I got a job part-time, and we just managed between us. We just obviously had the children, just kept going in family life now. And then my job meant that I had to work in the holidays part-time. And then through a friend of a friend who knew somebody, again, just through the networking with people, I guess, a job opportunity came up in a school. And I thought, actually, the children are small, so I will take this opportunity. And it was a teaching assistant, but particularly supporting performing arts and dance and PE. And so because that was my background, and that's what I really enjoyed, and I thought, well, actually, that does give me the holidays. That was my main motivation. That gives me the holidays and the weekends, you know, family time with the children. And then from there, I liked where I was. I liked what I was doing. And I quickly thought, actually, I can do this. I know that I can do this. I know that I can teach. And so I started doing Open University. And I linked that with the local university to me, and I got a certificate in education, and I did an Open University, all the modules, and it took me a few years. It took me about 4 years in total, maybe 5 years, and I became a qualified teacher.
Fantastic. It's quite a life journey, isn't it? But you also have done something that's equally exciting, I think.
I have, yeah.
And very unusual.
Very, very unusual. So I stuck with that for many, many years. I don't know, 16 years, 18 years maybe. And then just through circumstance, I just thought there were some shifts around at work, and I thought, okay, I hadn't intended to become a teacher. I had fallen into it. I had enjoyed it. I still do enjoy it. But I thought, okay, time now for something else. And so now I am a funeral celebrant, which means I officiate people's funerals.
I mean, I think that's absolutely fantastic. I didn't even know such a thing existed until I met you. It's such a wonderful thing because you get to help people through a difficult time in their life, and whilst it has a sad component for it, I imagine there's a lot of reward in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, funerals are naturally sad occasions, but I have the absolute privilege of helping a family celebrate somebody's life.
Yeah.
So it's about saying goodbye to somebody, but it's also about the admiration and the experiences of that person and the life journey of that person. And I get to facilitate that really for families. So it is an absolute privilege. It's incredibly interesting to hear about other people's, you know, life journeys and their histories, and you know, where they've been and what they've done, and yeah, and the value of life, absolutely, the value of who somebody is and what they're about.
That's amazing. I'm so pleased that we actually met and we managed to have this conversation. So now you've had a very good life, haven't you? I mean, you come across as if you've had a very good life. You know, it was difficult. It was a bit of a rough start, but you've kind of used the phrase that I've just had to get on with it. And I remember thinking that for myself. And it's a bit of a mindset strategy, isn't it? Where you literally just have to put everything aside and focus on what it is you need to get done and what it is you need to achieve. And having that capacity to be like that, but to remain open so that you can have new people come into your life and create that support system really helped both of us move forward. If you could look back and whisper something into your 17-year-old ear, what would you say to her?
What would I say to her? That's really difficult, because as much as I would say, I used to say to my own girls, and they used to go out and about, you know, in their teenage years, and my passing comment used to be, joking but not joking, have a lovely time, don't get pregnant. You know, maybe like, no, Mom, okay. What would I say? I suppose that would be my thing to myself, you know, have a lovely time, you know, don't get pregnant. But equally, you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't not have my son, you know, I wouldn't have that any other way now. So I think it is about being open to opportunity. It is about realizing that the sky's not actually falling in. You know, that you are valued, you are loved, even if it's not by the person you expected it to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's about recognizing your support and your friendships, and that you are resilient, you know, that we are more resilient than we think we are.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Liz. It was really, really lovely to talk to you. Have you got any ending words for us?
Any ending words?
You don't have to.
I'm probably going to say no now, and then later on I'll just say, oh, that would have been a great passing comment. But
oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything at this.
Okay.
At this
so if our lovely viewers want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
Well, your Facebook group, your StarTeens.
StarTeens.
Yeah, so I've had a lovely invite to join there. So you can, people can find me on there. I'm going to join that group, definitely. And people can contact me through Facebook that way. That's absolutely fine. And I'm quite happy to support, advise where I can. If I can, gladly, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate that. So guys, we're going to close off here, and we're going to wave bye-bye to Liz, but don't go away, Liz. We're going to wave bye-bye to Liz. And what we will do now is just say a final few words about this. This is our first podcast about it. So thank you very much for tuning in and viewing. Give us all the thumbs up and give us all the shares, make sure we get out there and help people and let them know that they're not alone. So that, as Liz said, it feels like the sky is falling, but it isn't. I promise it's still up there, and it's still up there for me 30 years later. So we will see you next time. Drop us a comment and let us know what you think, and we will talk to you later. So bye-bye now.